Well, hi again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football. This is the NFL preview show. We are going to talk about all the games that are going to be happening on Week 17 that have playoff implications, ones that you're going to need to know when you're visiting by the water cooler. But you know what? You're probably not going to be at work this week because the way it is right now, you've got the Christmas holiday. Merry Christmas to everybody. Brian is in his Christmas gear. Joey, did you ever play when you were with the Steelers, or as a general manager, a scout, personnel director, the guy that takes all the film and trash out everything? You've done it all. Are there Christmas Day memories that you would have of games that had playoff implications, or anything that popped right off in your head of it? Oh man, I remember this one time.
Actually, not, to be quite honest. I'd be quite honest with you. We did play. As a player, I didn't play on any Christmas Day games, but as a executive and a scout, we played on Christmas Day a few times. And depending on where we were, I don't know if we did that with when I was with Bill or Rex. We may have done it with Rex a couple times, played a Christmas Day game.
Yeah.
However, those games are, have become more and more popular today. Back then, it was probably two or three. The Lions always played on Thanksgiving. The Cowboys always played on Thanksgiving. Now on Christmas, you're having a whole litany of games, which didn't used to really happen in the past that much. But now, with the way the league is and the TV contracts, you have a ton of them now.
Yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon. What I remember is there were some games on Christmas Eve. Mm-hmm. If that were a Sunday, and if it were a Saturday, there'd be a couple of games anyways at the end of the season, and then Sunday would be the day after Christmas or sometimes before. And right. How you practice, there were a lot of different ways of looking at it. Brian, there was one game, I think you were probably 2 years old, when the Falcons, at the end of the year, we needed to win one of two games, and we played Carolina their first year. This is 1995, so you were just a newborn, and we lost. We played their first year. They played at Clemson. And we were at Clemson. We should have beaten them, but we didn't. And then the next week we played the 49ers, and this is a Steve Young, this is a Super Bowl champion type 1995 San Francisco team. And we pulled it out of our hat. It was unbelievable. We ended up scoring Terrence Mathis at about a 65-yard touchdown with 2 minutes left to go. We sacked Steve Young to win the game, and we qualified for the playoffs. So there was much rejoicing all around. It was pretty cool. But Brian, I know, in your experience, just as an average fan, there are games all around New Year's, Christmas, the in-between. The way the schedule works this year, there's going to be 3 games on Christmas Day, and then 2 on the Saturday following that, and then the rest of the schedule will be Sunday, and then a Monday game. So 4 days this week, they're just going to be packed with football.
Yeah, well, it used to be this is the bowl game central too, right? You got bowl games every day. The NBA used to be the Christmas juggernaut, right? You'd always have a slate of games from like noon until like 10:30, but the NFL saw that market. They said, hey, I think we could probably, take control of those slots and have eyeballs on games, which is true. And Netflix was more than happy to oblige. I'm not sure if all 3 games are on Netflix. I know at least 2 of them are, but all like Joey said, all the TV contracts, yeah, there's just 2. So, you only need 12 different networks to be able to watch the NFL. But, yeah, well, people have them. People are paying for them. And that's why the league revenue is high. And that's why the salary cap keeps going up. So, obviously, the formula is working. So, they're gonna stick with it.
Yeah. Some people say, this is a Christmas holiday. It should be for family and not football first. I get it. But there are a lot of folks that are out there that may not have the family nearby or have a great experience in that area, and they're looking for something else to do. And this is obviously one of them. Lakers, Celtics are the previous champion. You would get a rematch of the Spurs and the Warriors, or it didn't matter. All kinds of different stuff. But the NFL is competing for that. And Joey, there are 3 games on Thursday. So unlike most other holidays, it won't be a full schedule, but like Thanksgiving, there'll be 3. Oddly enough, the teams that are playing are similar. Dallas will be at Washington in the first game at 1:00. That will be on Netflix. Detroit goes to Minnesota. Obviously, Detroit has to win that game. That's at 4:30, also on Netflix. And then the evening game will be Denver at Kansas City at 8:15. That'll be at GEHA Stadium there in Arrowhead in Kansas City. So 3 big games, Joey, for obvious reasons. There are some implications, playoff implications in the first 2.
Yeah, well, I'm sure Netflix is not happy about the Kansas City and game because Kansas City's completely out. They're injured. So that game really doesn't mean anything anymore. And the Vikings game, their quarterback will be out again with the fracture in his wrist. So Detroit should win that game. So there are some interesting games. Unfortunately, those the ones we mentioned earlier won't really factor much into the playoff scenario like some of the others that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, well, Denver obviously winning the division. That's an important game for them. They need to win at Kansas City. It looks like they will, especially when you mention Kansas City's basically going to mechanic shops. It's going to Foot Lockers and to gymnasiums all around the country looking for a quarterback to play for them. But in the meanwhile, let's talk about the games that do have playoff implications. We're going to start with Houston at the LA Chargers. Big game for everybody. Brian, I'm going to start with you on this one. The LA Chargers, for obvious reasons, they're winning when they need to win. And they struggled. They're 11-4 right now. They had some issues earlier. They had some injuries, especially at offensive line. It seems that they've been able to deal with the injuries and get a good enough group on the field at the same time to focus at the same time, defense play well at the same time, to where obviously they're just a game out in the division. It's a tight division, but the Texans need to win as well. So they're 10-5. Let's start with Houston. What do they need to do to go on the road and keep pace with Jacksonville?
Well, do what you've been doing all year. Play some defense, right? This is a Chargers team that, remember, both their starting tackles are out for the year. Joe Alt is out for the year. Slater got hurt very early. I think it was even before training camp. So they've kind of been moving guys around up front, and obviously that's part of the reason why Justin Herbert got banged up is he's getting hit a lot. This is a game for Houston where you're licking your chops. I think you should, your bread and butter is let's get after the quarterback. Let's keep him uncomfortable because the offense has been good at times. It hasn't been great, but listen, that's where they hang their hat. They're a defensive ball club. They love to play defense. They would love to run the football. It's all of a sudden the divisional race. I mean, they were looking up at Houston for the longest time, and then the Jaguars kind of came out of nowhere, and they've taken this division by storm, and the Colts have kind of fallen off. But I think they're still a playoff team regardless they win or lose this game. I think they'd be good for seeding, right? Just because I think the Chargers are obviously above them in the wild card right now, and I think they still have a slim chance of winning their division. But Texans just play defense, run the ball, play defense, don't turn the ball over. It's just the basic mantra, right? That's playoff mentality. That's really how you're going to go from, even the lowest levels of football to you are now. Stick to what they're doing. I hope CJ Stroud plays well. I think that's what you need. I don't think you need to be Superman, but he needs to play well and try to get Justin Herbert and get him uncomfortable because Chargers are a hot football team. I think they've won 7 out of 9. They've won 4 in a row. They're riding high. They got a lot of confidence right now. It's going to be tough to go beat them in their building. They beat some good teams too. They beat the Eagles. They beat, the Chiefs, so they were healthy. So this will be a good game. I think, the Texans are going to need to get up on them early and probably play from ahead. I think that's probably their path to victory if they want to go to LA and beat the Chargers.
In terms of scoring and the point differential, Houston is a plus 97. They've scored 346 points. They've given up 249. I say that to tell you that the Chargers have scored 349, so 3 additional points, a field goal more for them, but they've given up 301. Their scoring differential is 48. Joey, is the defense that Houston brings to SoFi Stadium on Saturday, are they going to be able to show up enough to be able to stop the Chargers? The Houston Texans have not officially been eligible for the playoffs. The Chargers have. Is that a difference maker right there?
Well, I think the Texans will come in and play hard for sure. I mean, because they have to put it. At these last 2 games, they need to win at least one, if not both of them. On the flip side of that, I think the Chargers still have some things to play for, and the Chargers are a hot team. They're coming in with a 2-headed monster running back who's playing good. Amarion Hampton is back, so he's running the ball well. Vidal has been the leading rusher, and he started the season as the 3rd option at running back. And the quarterback, Justin Herbert, has played really well. He's played injured. He's really tough. And these last 4 or 5 weeks, he's been an excellent passer, finding open guys down the field. And the most impressive thing is he's been getting a lot of yards with his legs. So I think for Houston, the quarterback will be off the spot a lot. Okay, so Harbaugh will roll him out, get him in space, give him the run pass option. So unlike what I think C.J. Stroud would be, who's is predominantly a pocket passer, and I think the Chargers will know exactly where he is. I mean, both teams have guys that have 13 sacks on a year. But if you're asking me who has the better defensive line, I would tell you the Texans have the better defensive line. But, if you're asking me which quarterback I expect to play the best, I expect Herbert to play the best.
The line is 2.5 points for the Chargers in their favor. In other words, they're giving up 2.5. They're favored by 2.5. The over-under is 39.5. So odds makers are not saying that this is going to be a high-scoring game. They're thinking the exact opposite. Either of you have any comments regarding that?
I think that's about right. None of these teams scare you offensively. They do enough to win. They can go down and score when they need to, but I think that's about right. That makes sense. I think the Chargers being at home, the Texans having to go there. Not the best home field advantage. We've talked about that. The LA teams don't have great home field advantage, but they're at home nonetheless.
Yeah. Well, the over-under in the Dallas at Washington is 50. So neither of those teams have the same defenses, formidability, and it is what it is. But anyways, all right, that's the first game on Saturday, folks. That's at 4:30. Next game we're going to look at, let's just take a couple of seconds, guys, if you don't mind. Baltimore at Green Bay. Neither of these teams have qualified yet. Baltimore has to win or they're done. Packers have a little bit more room. That tie is actually in their favor in terms of they have one less loss than everybody else. So they might get it that way, but they need wins. And both of these teams, obviously, playoff implications loom large. Joey, first and foremost, your perspective here at Green Bay hosting. This is an 8:00 game on Peacock Network.
Well, the Ravens have to win out. Okay, one slip up and they're done. So they have to go in with the mindset that the playoff has already started for them. So they have to go into the Packers, and I'm sure it's going to be nice and cold, even colder than it is in Baltimore and Green Bay when they get there. So this will be a tough game, and if Lamar is not 100% and they have to rely on the backup again, we'll see how that goes. But the Packers, on the other hand, they still have a lot to play for. They can put the Ravens out of their misery because if the Ravens lose, the Steelers are in. Whether they win, lose, or draw, the Steelers are in if the Ravens lose. So I'm sure the Packers are aware of that, and the Packers need to have some kind of momentum trying to get into the playoffs. So it'll be a big game in Green Bay this Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. The Steelers are 9-6. Baltimore is 7-8. They have to win both in order to win 9 games, right? You're just doing the math. And if the Steelers win any of the 2 games that they have remaining, obviously they'll end up being champs. But Baltimore doesn't have any more room to slip up. They had a poor first portion of the season. Brian, do they have what it takes to be able to get through this and just play out? And by the way, give Derrick Henry the ball in the fourth quarter, please. You made mention of that yesterday. Please give that man the ball, and you're going to give yourself a chance to win.
Well, the interesting part is both quarterbacks are questionable coming in. I think Lamar has a better chance of playing. I think they'll both end up playing, but this could be both teams' seasons on the line and just seeing who is the better backup quarterback, which is interesting. It's just funny. That's how it works out sometimes. But I think the bread and butter for both of these squads is going to have to be run the football, right? Whether these guys are fully healthy or not, they're probably not going to have, if at all, any real practice time this week. And for the most part, I don't think you really need it. But it's just going to be simplicity, right? Run the ball, play some defense, try not to turn the football over. I'm not sure what the weather's going to be like. I'm sure it's not going to be favorable for passing conditions anyways. Neither one of these teams likes to throw the ball a ton. If they're having to drop back and throw the ball 40, 45 times, they're probably losing. It's probably not good for them. But this is a wild game to predict because the Packers are just kind of a shell of themselves as far as how many injuries they've had and where they're at offensively. And then if you look at the Ravens, it's just for whatever reason, they're finding ways to lose games, even with Lamar and everybody back. So I think the Packers will win this one. I think it's going to be, it could be messy. It could be ugly. This is another game. I'm not sure what the line is, but probably another low-scoring affair against 2 teams that are just, fighting for their playoff lives at this point.
Green Bay is 2.5-point favorite. They've got to give 2.5, and the over-under on this one is 40.5. Just for a real quick playoff update. So the Packers at 9-5-1, and the Lions at 8-7. Lions have to win out.
Yeah.
Carolina at 8-7. If they win out, they're going to win the division. But you got Tampa. If they don't win out, could have 9 wins, but they'd have 8 losses, and that would not be enough. Detroit at 8-7 is really the only other team that's eligible. San Francisco, the Rams, either Green Bay. Today it would be Green Bay. Philadelphia wins the division. Those would be your wild card teams. So interesting perspective how this is going to work out. But Green Bay absolutely has to win this one, and if they do, they keep their playoff hopes alive. Again, this is a 8:00 game later in the evening, and this is on the Peacock Network. This is Saturday. Let's go look at some of the Sunday games. We'll start with the Seahawks. 12-3 was such a big win. Joey, obviously, the playoff implications were looming large. The 12th man, everything you could possibly imagine, and they pull it out. They get a 2-point conversion to win against the Rams on Sunday. You have to have that same type of energy to go on the road and beat Carolina, who just we're going to run it, and we're going to do some things that you probably haven't seen before, but we're a pretty good football team.
I don't think anybody thought at the beginning of the season that this game would be such a big factor in the playoff picture, especially the people in Carolina. And now Carolina's really in the thick of it. They can control their own destiny. And by winning, if they can pull out this win, then they will all but lock up a playoff spot, I believe. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And hey, Seattle has to be careful coming in here. The Rams just lost in Carolina a couple of weeks ago. So Carolina, they run the ball on offense. They play really good defense when they need to. They have a really, really extraordinary corner and horn. So they can really do some things. Now, again, the Niners are a really good football team. And a lot of times they were winning with smoke and mirrors with the number of injuries they had. But they kept finding a way to win. I kudos to that coaching staff, both offensively and defensively. And they're the driver of their own ship right now as well, because if they win out, they'll win the division. So it'll be interesting to see the attitude that they come into Carolina with.
Well, speaking of attitude, Brian, if I'm a Carolina fan, I've got renewed enthusiasm. I may have had season tickets earlier and wanted to give them away. Now I'm grateful that I've got a couple of games at the end of the season that are not only meaningful, but we can win the division. Who would have thought that just 2 months ago, let alone 2 weeks ago? Congratulations to them on that. But again, Seattle is a very good football team. They came to Atlanta just a couple of weeks ago. They kind of needed to wake up a little bit, play the first half. And once they did, boom, they exploded. And again, that's Atlanta, a much different team. Carolina's defense is a little bit better. And, I'm not sure exactly how it's going to work out, but I think Seattle really needs this to keep distance between them, the 49ers, and the Rams.
Yeah, I think if they lose this game and then the 49ers win, I think the 49ers leapfrog them, actually. I think the 49ers, they play them the last week of the season. So a lot of playoff scenarios, a lot of weird stuff going around. The Panthers, if they had beaten the Saints, could have wrapped up the division this week. So a lot of weird stuff's happened over the last couple of weeks. Obviously, it's going to be difficult for Seattle. They do have a couple extra days to rest up because they did play the Thursday night game. So you have, the extra rest Friday, Saturday, and then, of course, Sunday to get ready for this one. But like Joey said, you can't overlook this team. And I think if it's one of those things where they do kind of lull a little bit in the first half like they did against Atlanta, you could have some issues because, Carolina defensively, they've been very, very solid and they can score when they need to. That's one thing that Bryce Young, they've much improved the last month or so, is finding points when they need to. Ted McMillan, who he's not going to get in the same conversations as obviously like the Jackson Smith-Njigba's or the guys at the top of the league, but he's making a name for himself and he's very, very good. He's creating a dynamic to this passing attack. They're able to throw the ball down the field. They're more effective in the red zone. There's a reason the Panthers are 8-7. They could be better. They've had some letdowns, but this is a very good team, not to be underestimated. And Seattle, funny enough, at 12-3, they still got to win, or else they could very well find themselves playing on the road in a wild card situation, potentially against these Carolina Panthers a couple weeks down the road.
Yeah, Sam Darnold has a good first half and doesn't throw the ball away like he has against the Rams a couple of times. What do you have? 6 interceptions, and he
In two
splits
games. Yeah.
in 2 games with them. They split, win one, lose one. Seattle favored by 7. The over/under is 42.5. I'm not the big spread guy. I'm just mentioning what the numbers are. But obviously, everybody thinks that Seattle should handle Carolina pretty handily, pretty easily. And again, this is a 1:00 kick. Also want to make mention Pittsburgh, who has to get a win. They got Cleveland at 1:00, and then Jacksonville at Indianapolis. What a wreck the Colts have been. That's also a 1:00 game. That's on Fox, oddly enough. But Jacksonville obviously can just pull away and do everything they can to clinch the division with a victory there. But the next game we want to look at is Philadelphia at Buffalo. This should be a really good football game, guys. Joey, I'll start with you. Buffalo at home, they're always tough. But you take an Eagles team that really has clinched the division, one of the first to do so. The separation between them, Dallas, Washington, etc., and the Giants, just too much. They've been so consistent over the years. Have they been kind of lulling them way into this, and now it's time to get into 4th and 5th gear? The Super Bowls that they've had over the past couple of years where they know how to maintain the status quo and go exactly at the speed they need to be, but, turn it on with a week or two before the playoffs.
This should be a really good football game. I'm not sure the mentality that the Eagles will come into this game with, being that they've already clinched their division. But they need to go into the playoffs with some sort of momentum because they have not played any consistent football all year long. They've been winning. They've been winning in different ways. Sometimes defensively, and the offense will pick it up when they need to. But the offense has been really, really inconsistent. The Bills, however, they're still in the hunt for the division title there. I mean, the Patriots are 1 game ahead of them, so they still have something to play for. So it'll be interesting, the mindset the Eagles come into this game with. I expect the Bills to play really hard and try to win this game, obviously, because they still have a ton to play for. I don't think they want to pass the ball a ton against the Eagles' defensive line. I don't think they want to put Josh Allen in harm's way. So I think the running back there in Buffalo will have a big day. I think they're going to try to run the ball as much as possible, and they'll get Josh going when they need to. Last week, I think he threw the ball. He was maybe 19 times, if that many. Maybe it was 12 times, but they only threw for like 130 yards. So I probably expect that type of offense. Although the Eagles, especially at cornerback, they're kind of limited at cornerback. So Josh could end up throwing for more yards than he did last week, depending on the weather.
Isn't the strength, Joey, I'll stick with you for a second. The strength of the Eagles defense is, try to run against us. And so I think they are Buffalo, that is probably going to say, all right, we're going to run up the middle a couple times. And if it doesn't work, we're going to go over the top. We can do it.
Yeah, well, they're going to try to, but the Eagles got healthy on the defensive line. They start getting some guys back who can rush the passer, the linebackers, who they have 2 linebackers that are excellent pass rushers as well. You got the big boys up front. So I'm not sure you want to drop back a lot and get that quarterback hit, especially if you're Buffalo and you still have a couple injuries on that offensive line. So I think you want to have some caution doing that. Again, because the Eagles have already wrapped up the division, and they may come in knowing that if Josh Allen's going to throw the ball, we're going to put a lot of hands on him. So you have to be careful of those kind of things happening late in the season.
Brian, stick with me with the Bills. First and foremost, they're 11-4. Patriots are 12-3. 2 games left. The Eagles here, Buffalo has them, and then they go to the Jets. If they win both, at least they've got a chance. They got a poker player's chance of actually doing it. But there's a lot of work, and obviously New England needs to lose at least one of those games in order for them to be eligible for the playoffs in terms of the division lead and the title and a possible bye. But first and foremost with you, just your thoughts on Buffalo and what they need to do. Are they going to stay on the ground, you think? Are they going to go over the top? Are they going to pass a lot? I really agree with Joey. I think if it works and it's successful, as long as they have one more point than Philadelphia, they don't care how they get it. They just want to make sure that they get out of this game with everybody healthy.
Well, listen, Josh Allen being, the MVP caliber player that he is, I think the Bills are at their best when they can run the ball with James Cook. When you can run the ball effectively, when you can kind of the play action, the bootlegs, get guys in space. kind of suck the linebackers up a little bit and kind of make it to where you keep them guessing. I think that's when Buffalo is at their, that's when they're the most successful. Josh Allen can play hero ball. I don't think you want him to because, listen, you want to keep him healthy, especially against this Philadelphia front seven. It's going to be tough to do a whole heck of a lot of anything because this defense has been stout all year. The question with Philadelphia has been the offense. Are they going to get it together? Are they going to become more efficient? Are they going to click? Jalen Hurts at times has not looked very good. The running game for the majority of the season hasn't looked very good. I think there's a lot of things that Philadelphia, if nothing else, fine-tune, right? Both these teams are still playing for playoff seeding, which kind of uncharted territory for them because both these teams have been either at the top of their division or at the forefront of the conference for the last couple of years. So the last 2 weeks of the season still fighting and needing some help to move up is uncharted territory for both of these guys. But, a win is always nice. I think you want to play against a good football team and kind of flex your muscles a little bit and get a win in that regard. But just making sure you're healthy, making sure that you kind of get in rhythm and you get, all right, hey, this is what we can do well against teams like this is what we can't do well. If anything, this is a good litmus test for both these guys late in the year. I think Buffalo, obviously, because they're, still behind the division, they probably need this one a little more than Philadelphia. But, if I'm the Eagles, you want to win every game going forward, obviously, if you're anybody. But, find out what you're really good at, get some consistency before the playoffs and before the games start really, really mattering.
When we broke every huddle as a team, when Reggie White, when I was with the Eagles, and even in Green Bay when I was with them during the preseason, my first year out of Atlanta, Reggie would always say, 1, 2, 3, dominate. And we would dominate. And that's what we would say, and we break the huddle. Either one of you, Joey, I'll start with you. Are the Eagles dominating in the way that they need to in order to get back to the Super Bowl? Or are they just they're above average, don't get me wrong, but they're lesser than what they have been. There's a different aura to this team. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying, is this a team that can turn it on the way that they have in the past? Sirianni got that ability to coach that, or is that just something that is a magical thing that you either have it or you don't?
Well, I think they've dominated in spurts. And what I mean by that, I think defensively they've dominated in spurts. I think there were times, especially early in the year, when they were able to do that. And I think they're trying to get back to that with getting healthier on the defensive line and at the linebacker position. Again, I do think they have weaknesses at the corner position. So if you can protect your quarterback, you have a chance to make some plays down the field against their corners. Offensively, I'm not sure they can get there because I just think despite Saquon Barkley being able to run the ball pretty efficiently the last couple of weeks, that their offensive line is still in a position where when they face a really good defensive line, that they're going to struggle. And they're going to struggle protecting Jalen Hurts at times because the Eagles' offense is quite rudimentary, to say the least. Yeah. So offensively, I don't know if they can flip that switch. Defensively, I think they can in spurts, although they don't have the depth at the cornerback position that they had last year. And offensively, again, their offensive line is in a different place than it was last year. So they aren't the same team. And I know there's still a lot of frustration. This was a big week for A.J. Brown. He had a lot of targets. They were able to win, so all was right with the world. But we'll see what happens after Christmas. He may have gotten some coal in the stocking, so who knows? We'll see what happens next Sunday.
Well, and 10-5, they could go 12-5, right? And who's complaining? I am. I'm just asking. Simple question. Eagle fans are ready to throw, their hot dog wrappers at me and other things that might go inside of that. Brian, your thoughts on what Joey said, and you agree?
I do. I think the biggest issue for them, though, is the run game was really inconsistent. It's been good the last couple of weeks, but it was very inconsistent. This was a team that was guaranteed. If you're getting 3rd or 4th and 2, they're going to get the first down, right? They're going to find a way to get 1 or 2 yards. That's just the tush push is part of it, but they're so physical. They're so big up front. Their offensive line, it dominates. It really does. And they're not bad in any capacity, but they just haven't had that same level of domination, especially off the rip and the early part of the season. They looked like they had a Super Bowl hangover. And honestly, even till a couple weeks ago, it looked like they had a Super Bowl hangover the first 3 months of the season. So, I think they're still trying to figure it out. There's an identity thing that you got to, obviously all teams have to go through, but it affects the passing game when you can't run the football, when the offensive line isn't as dominant up front. Obviously, it affects everything, but they just don't look as crisp. They don't look as good. Obviously, when you lose play callers and you lose coaches, that's part of the deal, right? That's what happens. But this is still a very good football team talent-wise. They're still a playoff team. And even though for the majority of the season they haven't been anywhere near their best, they're still 10-5. I could say the same thing for Buffalo on the other side, but both these teams are just in a position right now where they're still very good. They have a ton of talent, and on Sunday, each one's just going to try to go out there and maybe play a little bit cleaner and just play a little bit better and come out with a win.
Yeah, must-see TV. Again, this is a 4:25 late game on Sunday. This will be on Fox. Next game we're going to look at, Chicago Bears, San Francisco 49ers. This will be at Levi Stadium in California. Not sure exactly what the weather is going to be, but I know there's water in the forecast, and it's a late game. I don't know if that favors the Bears or not, but both teams are 11-4. Joey, who would have thought that at the beginning of the season, that they'd both be in the position that they are right now? Bears have to win in order to keep pace with the Packers right on their tail. A big win at home against those same Packers. Obviously, the momentum's there. And then a Monday night game last night. They get one less day of rest, but San Francisco has a chance to win the division if they win out and Seattle loses or falls at any step of the way. Obvious playoff implications. They're both in, but, the seeding and where they fit, this is a huge game for both.
Absolutely. It's a late season game. I'm sure the league is happy about we're in week 16. And we still have some divisions that are up for grab and some teams that are playing really hard. And these are two teams that will need to play really hard. And the 49ers at home will be hard to beat. And I understand that the Bears have played really well this season. The defense has been very opportunistic. And Caleb Williams continues to grow. They're able to run the ball with a two-headed monster there in Chicago, which has been really good. They have a really solid receiver core, albeit young, with the exception of DJ there at the receiver core. So it'll be interesting to see how this game unfolds. I expect the 49ers to win the game, to be quite honest, at home. McCaffrey, again, has a chance to be the first player in league history to have 1,000 yards rushing, 1,000 yard receiving in the same season for the second time. He's already done it once. You have other guys that have done it once. No one has ever done it twice, and he has the opportunity to do that with obviously 2 good weeks. So it'll be interesting. And Brock Purdy,
Joey, let me stop you there. And I want to kind of recognize the importance of this. I mean,
yes,
all the injuries and everything that, he has kind of quietly been under the radar, hasn't he, all season? I mean, this is a great accomplishment right now, but we're not talking about him in the same capacity. Maybe on purpose, the media has just waited until now, but this is a big deal, what he's doing. And his accomplishments he's a tiny little dude when you meet him, but he's stout, he's tough, he's got a good line in front of him. But I guess I'm just pausing to say, thank you, Christian, for being as good as you are. And I want to recognize it, what Joey just did, and to just say thank you for all that you've done to make the league a better place. And this is an honor. I mean, who would have thought that this young man out of Stanford would be breaking records and doing what he's doing in the National Football League?
Well, I'll say this. If after last season and the injuries that he had, you would have thought he would have been one of the guys that would have been on that injury list a lot, because your body only has so many hits in it. And he's taken a lot of hits throughout his career.
Right.
And last year was a really bad year from an injury perspective for him with the leg and, potentially that was an Achilles and, had a lot going on. So he comes back this year. And really, despite all the injuries on the offensive line, the defense, the quarterback, he's been the most consistent player on the team all year. And that's a credit to him, his conditioning, his work ethic. So we do have to give Christian McCaffrey his flowers right now and the kudos to the kind of season and the kind of work ethic that he has.
And he works. Don't get me wrong. This isn't easy for anybody to gain as many yards as he does. And being smaller, he gets hit hard, and he pops right back up, and sometimes he gets hurt, but God bless him. We had a similar guy when I went to Colorado State University, a guy named Steve Bartello, but you see him at the end of the game, he's got bruises and bumps, and he's bleeding, and lacerations all over his ribs and everything like that from the hits that he was taking. And he'd be calm. He'd be preparing himself for the next week during practice. He wouldn't do a whole heck of a lot, and then he'd go out and do the same thing over and over and over and over again. And Christian McCaffrey, obviously at the NFL level, is he's a phenomenal guy. And so I want to give him his flowers, as Joey said. And Brian, maybe you do the same. But getting back to the game, the Bears defensively, they're in the middle of the pack, and offensively they're in the middle of the pack. But gosh, they keep finding ways to win. And what an exciting time to be in Chicago. Is there a chance for them to pull this out in San Francisco and get themselves a surprise win and really set themselves up from a confidence level to where we beat the Packers in our own division? We did that at home a week ago. Now we go on the road and going against another playoff team. We're for real.
Well, I will say this. I don't think they're playing their best football the first couple months of the season. I think they've really grown. I think they've come along nicely as far as, hey, we're figuring our identity on offense. They run the ball very, very well. They're incredibly opportunistic on defense. Obviously, they're going to stifle you. They're not going to get a ton of sacks. You're going to be able to move the ball up and down the field a little bit, but they get a lot of turnovers. They make plays when they need to. They bend, but they don't break. If you go back and watch the Green Bay game, they did it a lot. There was a lot of bending and not breaking. And then the defense just kept them in it enough for the last couple possessions. They get the onside kick. They find a way to win. And that's a special thing to do. If you could find a way to win games like the Bears have, especially with the young team, the coaching staff has done a great job. I think Caleb has taken a step forward this season. The numbers aren't gaudy, but he's turning the ball over less. He's more efficient. He's leading the team, right? And they're relying more on the run game and the offensive line. That's both improved, which is something they hadn't had the year previous. So give a lot of credit to these Bears. This is a very good team. And, very sneakily, I think this could be like the NFC Championship game preview. I wouldn't be surprised if both of these two teams are playing in about a month or so with a berth for the Super Bowl on the line. But what you guys mentioned with Christian McCaffrey, he's on pace to touch the ball probably over 420 times total. He's probably going to be the Niners' leading rusher and leading receiver, coming off of 2 injuries, which a lot of people were saying, hey, I don't know if he's ever going to be able to come back, let alone be the same player and hit the ground running. I think he's been arguably one of the 2 or 3 best running backs in the league this season, and he's just done it at such a consistent level. The 49ers rely on him heavily. Give credit to Brock Purdy, though. Brock Purdy's played well when he's needed to. Obviously, they missed, without him, but these are 2 very similar teams in how they operate. They're very well coached. This is, I think this is going to be a very good football game. I like that it's in prime time. And I think a lot of eyeballs are going to be on this one. I think there's a good chance that one of these 2 teams could be representing the NFC in the Super Bowl come February.
Well, I will say this, Harper, before you go, that it appears that Kittle will be missing this game. He'll be out.
Is he out?
It appears that that's going to be so. And since Purdy has been back, he's been really reliant on George Kittle. He has been one of his greatest security blankets since he's been back. So that'll be a big miss if he's not able to play.
Kittle, I'm showing right now, I've got an ESPN feed. Kittle is questionable. Ricky Parcell is questionable. And those are the 2 receivers in that mix that but if George has been updated to where he's out, then he's out. I'm not aware of that, but that could be the case. Joey, before we go, Caleb Williams, 3,400 yards exactly, 2 games to play. He's got 23 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions. Brian talked about him cutting down on his turnovers. 6 interceptions throughout an NFL year for a young guy like this. What impresses you about his maturity level here going into the 3rd year? He doesn't have Matthew Stafford or Drew Brees numbers, but for a Chicago Bear quarterback, you name any quarterback other than McMahon and maybe Bobby Douglas or Jay Cutler that has that type of ratio in Chicago outdoors. I'm really impressed with him. I think he's at a different level right now. I think he's understanding the game. It's slowing down a little bit for him. And he's leading in a way that maybe the rookie didn't do it. It didn't know how yet, but now he's kind of directing traffic in a way that where his coach, where his teammates, and he himself is very at peace with who he is right now. Is anything I'm saying, is that goofy, crazy stuff, or does any of that make sense to you?
No, it all makes sense. I think Ben Johnson has got Caleb to not try to be a home run hitter every time he's at the plate. So he's able to take the check down. He's able to throw the ball in the flat when things happen. and when he needs to take a shot, he takes that shot. And he's got superior arm talent. I mean, some of the throws he's made this year is probably 3 or 4 other guys in the league that can make those throws, maybe. And so he's a supremely talented quarterback. And I just think the fact that Ben has gotten there and has forced him to take the easy throw and then gradually go down the field, I think has really helped him a lot. And guess what? I don't think he's going to get there this year. I mean, he needs 600 yards in 2 games. But there hasn't been a Chicago quarterback to throw for 4,000 yards in the season. I mean, out of all the guys we mentioned, none of those guys have ever thrown for 4,000 yards in the season. Now, I don't think he's going to get there this year. Maybe with the playoffs he'll get there. But I think he's well on his way to doing that in the regular season in a year or two under Ben Johnson.
Yeah. He's 11-4. That to me is enough to go. He's learning the game, right, Joey? He's learning how to play the game at a different level. I don't always have to sprint out of the pocket, get to the line of scrimmage, and just before I go over, I got to chuck it deep. And he's learning. Mm-hmm. He's learning, and it takes
mentally the game is slowed down for him, and that's
exactly.
a good thing.
And that doesn't happen overnight. And you see Cam Ward in Tennessee right now, struggling mightily with a bad team. I think Caleb had that his rookie year, and I think he's now finally getting to the point where he's comfortable with who he's got, and the players around him are getting better because he's giving them the ball and letting them do things. There's a difference when you have a team full of all-stars like San Francisco. You just got to get some of those guys the ball. When you don't have those all-stars, but you make everybody better because you get the right people the ball at the right time, that is a magical part of learning the game, and I think Caleb is beginning to master that. That's just my opinion. Final thoughts, everybody, before we go. Week 17. Goodness gracious, there's only 2 more to go. And we're going to run out of shows before you know it. But Joey, first and foremost, week 17 for you. 2 games left for each of the NFL teams. A lot of playoff implications. We've gone over Houston at the LA Chargers, Baltimore at Green Bay, Seattle at Carolina, Philadelphia at the Bills, Chicago at the 49ers. Give me your final thoughts.
Well, I will say this, and with the exception of the Rams, there are not a lot of teams really counting on the pass game a whole lot, to throw for a ton of yards. I mean, the quarterback in San Diego, I think he had a big game last week. But again, if you can run the ball this time of year, December football is predicated on running the ball and a strong defensive line. And the teams that are doing that, along with Jacksonville, I got to give Jacksonville credit because they're in a position and that quarterback is playing really well. But it's all predicated on them being able to run the ball and for him to run the ball. So I think the teams coming down the stretch, those teams that are like the Steelers and other teams, they have to be able to continue to run the ball and affect the passer on defense.
Yeah, absolutely. Brian, real quick before we do this, 3 games on Thursday, Dallas at Washington, Detroit at Minnesota. Playoff implications there for obviously for the Lions. Denver at Kansas City. Denver is in the playoffs, but they need to keep pace right here. On Saturday, 2 games, Houston at Los Angeles. We've already featured this. Both teams, playoff implications. Baltimore at Green Bay. That's the evening game on Saturday. Playoff implications there. Arizona at Cincinnati. Pittsburgh at Cleveland. Pittsburgh needs to win. If they do, they're the division champs. New Orleans at Tennessee, nothing. Jacksonville at Indianapolis, yes, playoff implications there. Tampa has to win. They're at Miami. New England is at New York. New England needs to win with Buffalo, and we'll talk about them in just a second. Seattle at Carolina, obviously playoff implications there. Philadelphia at Buffalo, yes, and Chicago at San Francisco. The Rams are at Atlanta on Monday night. And Brian, before I forget, I just want to remind you that New York at Las Vegas, that's a 4:05 game on CBS. Probably no one will be watching, but why? Why will no one care except for someone who wants to know who's going to be number 1 in the draft?
Oh, it's first overall pick. That's a big deal. Listen, I said this earlier. I think the Giants have a lot of talent. I think they have the ability to once they're healthy, I think they're going to be a very, very good football team next year. But, it's just it's kind of interesting. It's kind of the opposite of what we're seeing with some of these other games. It's fun. It's something to play for. It's really something to lose for, right? It's at least something to look forward to if you're a bad football team, which we got a lot of bad football teams out there. But, we get a lot of traction on our draft shows, and there's gonna be a lot of Raiders fans, a lot of Giants fans tuning into this one and hoping that, oh man, it's another tough loss. How are we going to recover from this?
We can't even lose when we're supposed to. Imagine what that's.
Someone's going to say that. So one of those two fan bases is going to be absolutely saying that. Yes.
But Joey, isn't the pressure really on? Wouldn't you rather be number 2 and go, yeah, we're not going to get the number 1 guy, but we got everybody else that we can trade with. We can pick ourselves. Is there really the value there in today's game where you want to, especially in this draft? Is there that one guy that everybody says, nope, we want him just as bad? And by the way, Vegas is favored by 1.5, and it's a 41.5. But Joey, real quick, go over this year's draft and how important this is in terms of whoever loses this and what's at stake for them.
Well, the Giants should have. Well, the Raiders will certainly try to win this game. They're going to take a quarterback unless they can get one in free agency, and teams usually don't give up quarterbacks in free agency. So that's they're going to draft a quarterback. Now, if you're in
August, we're talking Arch Manning. Now
Arch Manning's staying in school. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So he's not coming out. He's staying in school. So for the Giants, however, if they can get the number 1 pick, it's even better for the Giants, because guess what? They can use that number 1 pick. They don't need a quarterback, but they can offer they can ask for a king's ransom for a team that wants a quarterback. So they're sitting there number 1, not needing a quarterback. They can take the best available player, whomever they think that is. But somebody who needs a quarterback will give up their mother-in-law and everybody else to come up and get that number 1 pick, so they can draft a quarterback. Now, quarterbacks are the position that's most missed of all the positions because they're always drafted too high. So somebody will take a guy and think he's going to be great. He's going to be Justin Fields, and sometimes they didn't pan out. So quarterbacks are the position that's always drafted too high, and there are always more misses at that position than any other miss because you've overdrafted them. And if you miss on a quarterback, it sets your organization back 4 to 5 years.
Yeah.
So you can't miss on a quarterback.
Real quick, Joey, take this from the Giants' perspective. Let's assume that they lose this game and they get the number 1 pick. Talk about the difference between what the Giants would have to give up or what they would have to receive if they trade back to a team that's picking 5th, 6th, 7th versus a team that's 17th, 18th, 19th. How much more would they have to ask from a team that is below the middle of the pack from a draft perspective, from 16 to 20, let's say? Is there more at stake? Do they get an extra pick? Do they throw in a 2nd rounder for the following year? Tell me a little bit about that strategy.
Well, it depends on how much they value that pick and how much the other team values the quarterback, whomever they're coming up for. So, for instance, the Giants, if the Giants were moving out of the top 10, they would get whatever pick that they would get that team's 2nd round draft pick, maybe that team's 3rd round draft pick, and they will get the team's 1st round draft pick in the 2027 draft
the following year, right?
Yeah, and maybe even their 3rd round, 2nd or 3rd round pick. So it all depends on what they can get. They're gonna ask for a lot. It depends on what they can get, and it's difficult from the standpoint of some teams. You have some teams that like to handle all their business this year. Okay, so they may, if they've done a lot of work in free agency, they may say, you know what, we're going to give up this year's 1st round pick, next year's 1st round pick, and a 7th round pick or 5th round pick. They may give up 4 picks this year, but they will try to do all their finances in 1 year instead of spread it out over 2 or 3 years, which some teams will do. So everybody has a different way of doing business when it comes to trading for draft picks, because really after that you still have to pay those guys. Okay, and that's more prevalent in free agency because you have and during the draft those slotted positions, they're slotted, salary slotted. So you already know what you're going to have to pay that guy, whether it's 5% more than he got at that position last year, what have you. So there are different dynamics to go into that. But the draft picks become really valuable if you're sitting in a position where you can move back and still get a player that you feel like you like.
And Brian, wasn't it just a few years ago where Chicago and was it San Francisco? They switched one spot. I think it was from 3 to 2 and 2 to 3, and they move up to get the quarterback out of North Carolina. He's not even in the league anymore.
Mr. Trubisky.
Yeah. One slot. They gave up a ton of picks, not a ton, but a few, just to move back one spot. There's a price to pay for no matter where you do this, but whether it be Vegas, whether it be New York, for obvious reasons, the draft order will vary, depend on who wins this game. And then obviously there's 1 week after this.
There was a guy named Mahomes, I think, that nobody was really trading up for in that draft class as well. So, yeah, I mean, listen, a lot of times you'll get a team, they're fixated on one guy and they say, hey, we really like this player. We think he's going to change our franchise. We like what he does. We like the interview process, everything. And it just doesn't pan out, right? Sometimes that's just how it works. And it's a messy situation because the heart and soul of your team and the ability to, win games. I think a lot of it does come down to quarterback play. And, that's why we value guys so high, right? That's why you have guys, maybe not the best player in the draft, but they're going first overall over and over again because it matters so much. But, it's interesting. The whole trading up dynamic, it really doesn't matter how much you give up if the player is really good and it works. So I think that's sort of the thought process there. Because I remember there were Julio Jones. The Falcons gave a ton to move up for Julio Jones. Everyone's looking at, what on earth are you doing? And then, he has a Hall of Fame type career. So everyone stops asking questions. You know what? It worked out pretty well. So as long as it works out, you move up for the guy. But, not the strongest quarterback class of all time either coming out this year. So we'll see what happens. But whoever ends up in this situation, whether it be the Raiders, I think they're going to be looking at a quarterback. Obviously, I don't think they believe Geno Smith is the guy of the future. And then if you're the Giants, you already have your guy. And there's a lot of really talented guys. Maybe you only got to move 2 or 3 slots down. But if you can add a king's ransom on top of that, you can add a ton of talent to this team. And you can infuse this roster with starters next year going forward.
And one other thing I want to add to that, and you have teams maybe – the fourth team in the draft. They know the Raiders are the second team in the draft. And the Raiders may not want to stay there. They probably will stay there because they aren't going to give up a ton to move up one spot. But you do have other teams that will want to jump the Raiders. You understand what I'm saying? If they need a quarterback and they know the Raiders need a quarterback, then we need to jump the Raiders to get this quarterback because we think that may be the same guy that they want. So, you have all these different dynamics that are going on. Especially when you're drafting high.
Yeah, Arizona or Washington or whatever. They may have a need and players available and let the games begin for obvious reasons. Yeah, that's an additional subject that we will talk about on another occasion. But this has been the Christmas show that we've had, right? Just a couple of days before Christmas. We want to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas. We thank you for tuning in to 100 Yards of Football. And you get to hear Joey Clinkscales. You get to hear Brian LeBel and myself get to talk a little bit about the games from Week 17. And that's part of what we do. So the NFL preview, we appreciate you being a part of the show. Have a Merry Christmas, everybody. Thank you so much.